Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. As always, if you're new to the channel, what we're doing here, we are recreating the land of Hyrule in the art style of the Wind Waker. Of course, you know, if you've played Wind Waker, you know that all the islands of the Great Sea are just the mountaintops of Hyrule. But we hardly get to explore Hyrule, we just see a small portion of it near the castle. And so this project is all about reimagining the entire land in the art style of the Wind Waker. So join me for the ride and see Hyrule as you've never seen it before. I'm not reading from a script or anything. I almost have a spiel memorized for the intro, but it's a little different every time, as I always say. But welcome back to another video. Hope y'all have been enjoying some of the recent ones. Today, we're back. Fan favorite location. Excuse me, we're going to Snowpeak Ruins. So join me as we continue to work on Snowpeak. The last video was, excuse me, I have the hiccups now. The last video on Snowpeak was a very important video. It was the start, and this is just kind of a continuation of the work from there, but now actually placing it within the world of Hyrule. Because you know, sometimes when I'm making locations, I work on them separately and then import them into the bigger map. Sometimes it makes more sense just depending on the location. And that really just does depend, but for something like Snowpeak, I thought it made more sense to just focus on it in a smaller environment and then bring it into the world. And some of the stuff we're figuring out in this video is all about asking questions of, well, how does it fit into the world? And that is making me realize that there's some more decisions I have to kind of wedge some things around and redesign some things, which is a good thing. There was the path going up to Tingle, like what I call Tingle Mountain, right? It needed some work. It could have been a little prettier, more creative. And so I don't mind the opportunity to kind of reshape the landscape around that a little bit. And especially, I mean, we're fitting a whole snowy mountain, in theory, into this area of the map now that previously didn't really have a snowy mountain. And so comment down below any ideas you have for that new region, right? Because here's the thing. You saw this at the beginning of the last video, I think. I was originally building Snowpeak on kind of below Ice Ring Isle. And that was going to be a whole snowy region. I was like, well, let's just put Snowpeak there. But I got a lot of comments from y'all saying that, like, Snowpeak is not in the south. It just doesn't make sense for it to jump across the map. And I do get that. I think there's some locations I'm fine with jumping across the map, but going from the northwest to the southeast, I get that is a big jump. And if I can help it, you know, I totally respect that. And it gets tough, right? Because, like, you know, I believe that the Kokiri Forest of, or Korok Forest, right, from Breath of the Wild, like, I think that evolution of Koroks and the Deku Tree can be the same one from the Wind Waker and its location, and that can be the same as the Kokiri Forest of Ocarina of Time. Even though Korok Forest is in the north and the Deku Tree is usually in the southeast. I still believe that they can be the same one. It's just the map changes from game to game. And I'm accepting of that, and as a Zelda fan, I've been accepting that. But I do really, I guess all this to say is, like, I respect consensus, and I think, like, I'm willing to play loose with the canon, but if y'all really think that Snowpeak should be in the northwest, then that's something I listen to, I hear, I see your comments, and that impacts this project. And I think that that's good. I think it's cool to have an extra snowy peak, and that just means it'll be a more isolated region, just because there's not really a lot of other snowy stuff around it. And Tingle Island is going to be right there, and it's going to need to not have snow on top. And I think even at the end of this video, it's not, the snowy region is not as big as I want it to be. But at the same time, I also want to think of it as maybe a more isolated, almost like a, you know, like an isolated phenomena. Maybe it's even brought about by magic. You know, maybe there's a monster in the region that's keeping it icy and cold. So feel free to comment down below any ideas you have for that, because here's the fact too about this project. This is first and foremost a 3D modeling project, and like there is like lore, right? Like to the Wind Waker and Wind Waker's Hyrule, and timeline wise, I want everything in the map to make sense to that idea that this is Hyrule before the Great Flood within the prologue of the Wind Waker. All of that is important, and I guess that's the point, right? Is like, even if like you're not really seeing a story play out, I would love to like do some animations later within this world. But even like right now within modeling, even if like we're not seeing a story play out, I think it's okay to make your own story and for those things to impact the world. because obviously all the stories of all the other games are impacting the world. And so I think it's okay to come up with new stuff and go, well, maybe Snowpeak is clearly a little bit more magical within this setting. And I think there's opportunities to kind of play with that, for sure. I believe that, and that's just kind of, I want to open the door to that. And, like I always say in videos, feel free to comment down below any ideas that you have for locations that you want to see me work on, or any notes or feedback you have for what you see in the video. But also feel free to comment, down below kind of in that vein as well, if there's any kind of story ideas that, and some of you already have, and I'm thankful for that. But if this kind of inspires you to go, okay, I see that this is Hyrule right before the Great Flood. How does that impact these other locations? Like, how does that impact the story? From a story perspective, what can we kind of figure out that helps inform world building decisions? Because that's the thing, right? Is like, it's a 3D modeling project. First and foremost, I'm just modeling, but I want it to be impacted both by the story and by the idea of gameplay at the very least. I want to be able to think about, like, I've talked about this before, but as I'm modeling, be able to think about, well, what would it mean to traverse this landscape? To the point that, like, even if you're just looking at the map, I want you to be able to imagine exploring it at the very least. And that is important to me, and I think that adds value to the project. But I do think it's a good time. I'm checking my watch. I don't know what's on the time lapse. I don't know if this is a good place to pause, but I think it's time for a short message.
As always, if you want to be able to support the project, becoming a member on Patreon gives you exclusive behind-the-scenes access, early access to all kinds of bonus features, early access to music that I compose, scripts that I write, storyboards, previs, rough cuts of all my filmmaking projects. So become a member down there, and you get all kinds of early access to all kinds of stuff. You can also support me by listening to my music on Spotify or Apple Music, wherever you listen to music. Look up Joe Kendrick, JoeKendrick.
And we're back. Thank you so much. I always got to remind you how you can support me as a creator. It's the little things, I got to remind you. I hope it's not too disruptive to the video, but we'll see in the edit. I suppose we're still experimenting with the format here, but yeah, welcome back to Snowpeak Ruins. Yeah, like I said, I'm not watching the time lapse. I don't even know where we are in the video. But yeah, all this to say, I really enjoyed bringing Snowpeak to life. Like I've said before in the last Snowpeak video, the textures are from Mario Kart DS, and I think they fit well. Like, I want to be able to use Wind Waker textures and assets as much as possible, but this is something where I feel like the cartoonish nature of those textures works for that isolated location, and and I'm happy with the way it's turning out. And it's a little low poly, and there's some work I want to do and add more details to, like, the courtyard and stuff. But I'm still pretty happy with how it looks, and I can kind of walk away from it for a bit after this video, but and see what you have to say in the comments about any ideas you have, right? Because I do want to work on more, like, kind of, they are ruins, and, like, I have, like, the ceiling kind of open in that main room, and I want to do some work to kind of make it feel a little bit more like the ceiling was, like, there's holes in it, like it's ripped through. It's not just like it's an open courtyard, but it's like been torn, and I want to, like, kind of do some work to kind of show that as well. So I definitely still have work to do on Snowpeak even after this video is done. That is totally on my radar. But and same with what am I trying to say? The overall location of the mountain as well. I want to do a lot more work, because something I really liked about Twilight Princess was the lead up to Snowpeak, that you had to climb the mountain, and that was just such a dramatic climb, right? And I really want to incorporate that, and maybe even incorporate aspects from the Hyrule region, because I think map wise it makes sense for Snowpeak to kind of be analogous to the Hyrule region, at least in this map. And so I guess, like, I want to open up the door there to any ideas you have about the Hyrule region and Hyrule Mountain from Breath of the Wild, and incorporate, aspects of that location into this area a little more. And it's not going to be exactly the same or anything, just due to the nature of the map. I do think the mountain will be a little smaller, but it can still be like a bigger area. And, I want to encourage y'all's creativity there, and let me know if there's anything that you want to see realized within that area, and how that could impact the path leading up to Snowpeak and any of that stuff. Because that's something I'm interested too, right? Is because I'm incorporating a lot of locations from games, but there's also a lot of the map where I'm just trying to figure out, well, how do you traverse? What is the path from A to B? And so I guess like feel free to comment down below any ideas you have just to make that more interesting. Any things that you go, well, this isn't really like a major location, but like it would be kind of interesting if you're traveling along a path and this happens and you have to come to like a you know, there's a fork in the road and this is what's happening, and you know, a bridge is out, so you have to do this. I don't know. I guess I just want to encourage those kinds of comments as well, even if it's not just about locations you want to see, but just like what would make the paths between locations more interesting to y'all. I definitely want to kind of open that up as a question for y'all to voice your feedback and ideas. And you know, like I've said before in videos, if you're an artist or a 3D artist, you know, I would love to see some concept art from y'all, and especially if you're a 3D artist, you know, but either or, feel free to shoot an email my way. My email's listed on the about page of my YouTube channel. And so I would love to get in contact with y'all. And even if it's just a small thing, right? I've said this before, but if you're interested in working on the project and you think it'd be fun, like, you know, I would love for someone to do like a take on a major location, but even if it's just like a small asset, right? Even if it's just like a texture you're working on, or a small object, a tree, you know, whatever it is, like that stuff helps. It helps to have those even small assets, and especially stuff that can be duplicated, like trees, right? Like it's a single asset, but you can use it so many times. So, you know, if you're a 3D artist and you're interested in contributing to the project, the door is definitely open to do stuff like that, whether that's creating enemy camps or any other kind of thing that you think of. I definitely want to empower y'all to be creative, because that is important to me. Is like this project is like, this YouTube channel is all about my project, but I really value it being a community experience and y'all being able to voice y'all's feedback and ideas and creativity. And I also want to empower y'all that if you have your own projects, I want to encourage y'all to pursue them. And I hope that this project can be an example to y'all of like something that like, it's a passion project that is ambitious, but I'm seeing it through and I think it's worth it. And I really enjoyed being able to share the project with y'all. It's been a lot of fun to see all these new viewers on the channel and see how much you care about it. It's tough, right? Because like, I definitely like, I feel like this is a really ambitious project. I'm happy to encourage ambitiousness, but I do also feel both ways, that like sometimes like, you know, if you don't have the time for it, or you feel like you're going to get burnt out, I also like, I'm happy to encourage limiting your project. And, you know, if you want to be creative, think of ways you can do it in small projects. And that's how I feel as a filmmaker with all my filmmaking stuff. Feel free to subscribe to my main channel as well if you want to see more short films and stuff like that. But often I find that like, I love doing like half-hour movies, right? But sometimes it's like, in order to get something done and to get people involved, I just have to say, all right, this is going to be like the whole film's going to be like between 5 and 10 minutes. It's going to be really short. And that allows me to get it done easier. So it's like, I can do this project ambitiously because there's really no time frame. I can take as long as I want, and I want to keep moving on it. But, the fact is, that is the nature of this YouTube channel, is that I haven't given myself like a timeline. There's no deadline. So which kind of empowers me to take more time on it, and it can be ambitious because there's no rush. But in like filmmaking projects where I want to actually get it done this year, I find that it's beneficial to limit, to add limitations, to say, I'm going to keep it less than 10 minutes, and to not be too ambitious. Be ambitious in small ways. But that's a whole video in itself, right? Talking about ambitiousness and creativity and how to balance that. And sometimes that's just like a journey that you have to figure out on your own of what works for you. And I guess like, you know, I may give advice on how to be creative and what works within my process and what works on my YouTube channel. And I may talk about that every now and then, but ultimately it's like, you know, for your own creativity, that's such a personal experience, and we all work differently. And especially with writing, I think we all write differently. And I think it would be so hard to give writing advice. Let me know, comment down below too, if you want to see more stuff like that, just kind of unpacking the creative process and talking about creativity and managing projects. If that's the kind of thing you'd like to see me talk about more, you know, comment down below. But I guess all this to say is I do want to encourage y'all, and I've really enjoyed how much y'all have been able to lift up my creativity, and y'all have given me an outlet and a platform to be creative, and I want to give y'all the same thing by contributing to this project and by empowering your own projects. You know, I just want to see y'all be creative. If you want to make stuff, I want to encourage that. So that's all I'm trying to say. Let's wrap up the video. You know, as always, if you want to be able to support me as a creator, become a member on Patreon. That supports the creation of everything that I do. It gives you exclusive behind-the-scenes access, early access to scripts that I'm writing, bonus features, storyboards, previs, rough cuts, all kinds of filmmaking assets that you get to listen to first, especially music that I compose. I'm a musician. Any music you've heard in the background of this video was my music. And so feel free to listen to that on Spotify. Look up Joe Kendrick on Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you listen to music. That's JoeKendrick. All right, y'all. I'll let y'all go.